Welcome to the special franchisee success formula podcast for this week. This week is a very special week because we are celebrating here at the American Franchise Academy a very a special time because we are celebrating our ninth anniversary since we started the academy. Yes, 9 years. And it is just amazing to think back, where we started and everything that we have gone through, our ups and downs, and all of the things that we have implemented, and all of the franchisees and leaders that we have served. It's been an amazing journey. And of course, we could not be here and not celebrate it, especially with all of our audience, our followers, our subscribers, and our amazing clients. However, I don't want to celebrate this alone. And so, for us to be able to celebrate it the right way, I have invited our amazing instructor, Mr. Curtis Moore, to join me in the conversation for today. We're going to talk about all the topics, all the things that we have done in these 9 years, and where we are today, and what have been all the changes that have happened in the last 9, 10 years in our franchise industry, because a lot of those things have dictated a lot of the things that we have done here at the academy. And so we thought that that would be a great moment for us to be sharing and having an informal conversation with Curtis about that. So with that being said, Mr. Curtis, how are you doing? Welcome to this special podcast.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
You
it's
get
good.
excited when you think about all the changes from the AFA standpoint as it tries to address the changes out in the franchise world, which are huge. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no, definitely. We're gonna have a great conversation about all of those things. And first, I want to take a little bit of a journey back in time to where we actually started in this. And one of the questions that I always ask, I said, Aisha, how do you go from being in the corporate world and running operations and even running a brand to decided to create your own academy? And I don't know if you know this, Curtis, but it all started with the first franchisee that reached out to me asking me for help. Way back, 9 years ago, as a matter of fact, which is what I define as the beginning of the academy. When that first franchisee that I known from a brand that I had oversaw in the past, reaching out to me knowing that I was in the middle of a sabbatical. I decided to take a sabbatical to get some time, regroup, and decided to what I wanted to do for the rest of my career and spend some time with my family after working so much and so many years. And so that franchisee found out that I was in a sabbatical somehow and gave me a call and asked me if I was willing to be a consultant for him. He was asking me questions. And so, can you imagine what that would have been like for a franchisee that knew me? And, what do you think was going through their mind when they decided to actually reach out to me for help? What would you think was going through their head?
Well, I think they would, since they called you, they looked at you as somebody that they appreciated, valued your judgment, experience, and um, looked as you as towards as being a mentor to them, and which is incredibly smart to say, I don't know it all. I can always use help, and who would I need help from? Smart people, people that know what they're talking about, have been in the trenches, have done it, not just in theory. So that doesn't surprise me at all. So
Yeah, you know what? And obviously because I had always been in, not always, but most of my career in the corporate side, running operations, and because my education and experience was gradual, right? I started as a pizza delivery driver, an assistant manager and manager, and had the exposure to that education. And slowly through the years, I was able to be trained and saw people that were successful, and I imitated them and accompanied them, and people gave me first best practices. And by the time I got to that moment when he gave me a call, I had a lot of knowledge and experience because of that gradual education that I had experienced. And so, but it was surprising for me, I guess a little bit, that a franchisee would then feel like I needed my support. And interesting enough, what they were asking me about was not about the product or service or image of the brand they invested in that I used to run. They were asking me about the managerial side, like how do I, hire the best leaders? When do I get a district manager? How to control my cost of goods and all those other questions that are the management questions. And that's when I realized that there was a need. And I kind of knew it instinctively. I'm sure, Curtis, in your career, you saw that your franchisees didn't have that business acumen. They overcame it because the brand was good and, and we had, good sales, but they really went through, what do you think is the curve, the length of time that a franchisee with no um, business acumen experience, how long do you think it takes them for them to realize that they're missing that and for them to start learning it to actually have something that resembles the manager systems? Well, how long do you think that would take?
20 or 30 years at least.
Ah,
Of course, it varies from person to person. A lot has to do with their experience background. Where were they, the trenches they were in? What business was that? And is it anywhere close to the retail business and all the intricacies that, have to be addressed here? So one, I would say it varies. Two is the amount of support they already have. The peers that they trust that give them good advice, because some people don't have that. So I think there's a lot of variables, but nothing will teach you like doing it. You can talk before you sign the franchise agreement. Oh yeah, I can do this, I got this, I think I'm pretty. And then the franchise consultant's there for 2 weeks and they leave, and you got to make all the decisions.
I always say that is one of the scariest moments for a franchisee.
Yeah,
Right?
I was a Dunkin' franchisee in 79, and the agreement called for they had two consultants. One worked at night till 6 in the morning because all the production, because back then you made the product, the donuts, in the individual store. And he would leave as the other guy would come home from 6 in the morning till 6 in the evening. So I always had somebody there, even if I had, put in my 18 hours in that first 2 weeks. But in 2 weeks, they were on the verge of burning rubber out of the parking lot. And I get it. I mean, it was tough for them too. So, but to answer your question, in a generalized manner, I think back to myself that it probably took me at least 3 years to get my head to quit spinning, to where I could uh, think, and try to think forward, not just think about today and the crisis I'm in today.
How do I overcome today? How do I
Today,
solve problems today, right?
the first 3 years, I can't even talk to you about next week. I got to get through today,
Right.
So
And I wonder, the franchisees that go through those, as they going through those 3 years, right? Those month to month, how many of them maybe were not prepared even financially, as far as having enough capital to hold them up until the moment that they are at a break-even point and then survive, you know, um, the lack of clarity and confidence, and maybe, and maybe they quit or they sell, right? Before they get over that hump of getting to a little bit of a confidence on that, right? Because I can imagine there must be many, and I don't have the stats on that, obviously, but I wonder, how long, or how many people drop out in those first 3, 4, 5 years before they actually figure it out. That would
oh,
be,
absolutely. I think back in 79 when I had gotten out of the Army to do this, and they asked me before I signed, we want you to go in Atlanta. I think in Atlanta back then there were like eight franchise owners, and they wanted me to go talk, and they had a list. Go talk to these people before you decide. Talk to them, get the good, the bad from their viewpoint, which was very smart. You should. If you're listening to the franchisor side, and that's a viable, valuable opinion about the business, but it's not everything. Yeah, you have to look at people. Who are the people that are doing it? They have gone through and are going through the things that I'm getting ready, if I sign, to go through. And so I did. And there was, there was a consensus, I think, of overall contentment, but there were some, they're not helping me enough. And oh my God, you work like a dog. This is 24 hours a day. And I mean, it made me think, whoa, let me hold on. And then I fast forward when I became a franchise business consultant. I guess my interaction with franchisees was when I became a national trainer for Domino's and met so many in other parts of the country. And then when I had a group and I got out of training, became a whatever we were called franchise business consultant, and you met so many people that the way they got in is in Domino's, you had to work a year as a manager, corporate manager, franchise manager before you were even classified, considered. So it was all the task oriented, how to make the product, how to open the store, how to close the store, and you did the P&L and, you were involved a little. But that is miles and miles from the responsibility of, okay, I'm the franchise owner. I mean, looking forward at capital expenditures and cash flow management, things that are just foreign to so many people because the hat they brought into the business as a franchise owner was operations. I know how to make the pizza. I know, and I am convinced it's now. This is not 100%, but it's a high percentage of people. Now that someone had a technology business or they had, I don't know, they had succeeded in something and got the income and the capital to be able to invest into a franchise. um, it is great, but it's still, this is just a different cat. You can tell somebody all day long and until they get in it and you go, oh, now I see what you're talking about. So
That's what it is, exactly. Yeah. And then going back to my second question, which was how does franchisees feel after the grand opening? They've been accompanied by the FBC or the development team, and they've gone to maybe a week or two of support after the opening. And then the day comes where the franchise business consultant is leaving. And now the franchisee has experience, obviously the discovery days, they're training somewhere else, the opening process, the actual grand opening, and now they realize that what they at this point they are now realize that what they thought it was going to be is not exactly what it is. And now they hear that the days, I think they're counting the days where the franchise business consultant is going to leave because they know when that's going to happen. And then the FBCs leave, and that day they say, okay, bye, Joe. Congratulations, well done. If you need anything, just give me a call. And they'd walk away. How do you think most franchisees feel at
yeah,
that moment?
I think it's Adam Smith way back in the 1800s wrote the book, and First Economist talked about division of labor. Like when you're in a corporation, this group of people handle HR. This group of people handle the distribution. This group of people handle the technology. When you're the franchise owner, there is no division of labor. At least initially, you may build it and develop it as you gain more stores, but initially, who's in charge of distribution? I am. Who's in charge of technology? I am. I mean, it is a lot, and there are people that can't do it. There are people that decide they don't want to do it. They worked hard in that business, spent 25 years, became successful, and just didn't realize the workload of this and the stress load of this financially, physically, mentally. And they make a decision. I can't, I don't want to do this. I just don't want to do this. And they do leave. They end up selling their stores. And God
Yeah,
bless them. Nothing wrong with that. I mean,
yeah, many people think that this is an after retirement kind of fun thing to do, right? And that's not the. I mean, it can be fun if you have the skills, abilities, and preparation to do so, and it could be a very lucrative business. Clearly, the franchise world has been an amazing vehicle for so many entrepreneurs to be able to have their own business and be successful and be, free of the boss and be able to dictate their life to a certain point, depending on where you are in the journey. I mean, when I started in the industry as a pizza delivery driver, didn't even know what a franchise was. And I just happened to be lucky enough that I entered into a corporate store and I started to learning quickly about the industry. Literally, as a pizza delivery driver, I learned that I was in a corporate store, that Domino's was a franchise, that some of our neighbors were franchisees. These are independent business owners, and I started to learn all of these things, and I realized, wow, this is a way for people to have their own business in a platform with a brand that is successful. So I since then it just became a lifelong love affair with the industry, and never left. And now today, I'm not only helping people to thrive in it, but even, grow and expand the word out there of what's possible. So it's not all doom and gloom, right, Curtis? Because I mean, it is scary and it is hard, but it's not quite doom and gloom, right? Because I mean, you've seen in your life how many people have become very successful, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there are, this in when I think of franchise owner, this is not and people that work in stores, this is a team event. This is not a solitary business. I mean, if you did a personality exam and they said, it looks like your skill sets and your mind is, you should be a librarian, or you should work in the back of a warehouse driving a forklift where you're left to your own thoughts. And a lot of people are. And that's great. But being a franchise owner, that wouldn't fit. I mean, because you're ingrained with other people all day long, from the time in the store and outside of the store, from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed. And it sounds like, as I sit here listening, you're exactly right. It's not all negative doom and gloom. You meet some of the people you will know for the rest of your life. You will accomplish things that you didn't think you were capable of doing. I mean, you can see as you help and develop other people in your store or stores, and see them rise up. Even if they leave you keep in touch with some people and see them progress in life. So there's a lot of positive to it. And financially, absolutely. I mean, if this was not a good, if done correctly and run correctly, if this wasn't a financial success, there wouldn't be franchise. It'd all be Billy Bob's Hamburgers and Aunt Sally's Hamburgers and whatever. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's definitely many, many thousands and thousands of dreams come true, success stories. I've seen so many franchises start with 1 unit, 2 unit. They end up having 50, 100, 1,000. I mean, I personally know a lot of those franchises. And as in the last 10 years, more and more are having those, tens and dozens and fifties and 100 units. So imagine this is the type of business that you have 1 unit and you make X amount of money. And the moment you open the second one, you are doubling your profits. So it's not like having one business that you're growing it a little bit, 2, 3% every year. This is like you have 1 unit, you open the second one, you automatically doubled your income. Then you open a third one, now you have tripled it. You open a fourth one, you have quadrupled it, right? And it's the same model, same structure. So it's a lot easier than it is to go and do a different business. And you can do it much more rapidly than that one company growing it, 2 or 3% every year. So the number of the amount of success that happens in this industry is just amazing, which is why today, there's no exact count. I have never been able to find exactly how many, but I understand that there's been anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000 franchise brands in the United States alone. There's another almost 2,000 in Mexico and another 3,000 in Brazil. It's kind of like the generic, and don't quote me on this, guys, because I don't have the data, so I do not guarantee this, but isn't it thousands of brands? And within each of these brands, they're anywhere between two and thousands of units. So multiply that by however number of units on average per brand. There are hundreds of thousands of franchise units, and many of them, most of them are being run by entrepreneurs that they're not independent because they're in a franchise, but they are, you know, local entrepreneurs that were brave enough to invest their money, their savings, their 401k retirement into these businesses. and they're not a big chain. It's like the local, Joe and Mary, wife and husband that bought the local Subway, right? And that's the dream come true and gives them the freedom and the independence to be able to support their family. So I really truly love this franchise model because of it, and it's just been amazing. So moving a little bit, and let's just change the subject a little bit about the academy. We're celebrating our ninth anniversary today, so woohoo! How many companies actually get to 9 years? And what's interesting is at the beginning, I did not really think that this was the outcome. Like I did not, how they always said that you're supposed to have the end in mind. When you do something, well, I didn't have this end in mind. I just really, truly wanted to help franchisees. And I started with the first one, like I mentioned earlier, the one that called me and asked me for help. And then I had another one call me and ask me for help. And then another one called me and asked me for help. And then I have a brand that I used to work for call me and ask me for help. And with some of their master franchisees. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I realized again, going back to what were they needing help with? And that is the business management of it. And so as you know, we started the academy with one specific way of helping, which was supporting franchisees either manage their existing multi-unit organization or implement the systems in the organization so that they could grow into a multi-unit enterprise. And that is the command program. So that was before you even joined us, Curtis. I'm sure you remember how we were doing all of that about helping the franchises. And that's how this whole thing started. Obviously, it started with just being a consultant one at a time, but then with time, we had more people and more franchisees. Eventually we came up with this program, which is a group program, which again is the command program. And what it is a year-long it started actually at 3 months. So that Curtis, I actually thought, what, I can teach the franchises in 6 months how to do all these things. And then I realized, oh, 6 months is not, 3 months is not enough. So we expanded it to 6 months, and that was still not enough. And so we did 9 months and said, okay, we almost there, but not. So we end up with a year-long program. So in this year, what we do with the franchisees in the command program is we give them the knowledge, the tools, and the resources for them to build the infrastructure and the procedures and processes and policies to manage and grow and scale a multi-unit organization, with success and confidence. So I'm actually be able to transfer all of this knowledge that we talked about, right? That, people get into maybe 3 years, 4 years, 5 years in 1 year so that they can have that and quickly move on to the next point, which is scaling the brand. You asked me, how did that district manager program came about, right? Because that's when you came in. I remember, do you remember the days that I brought my binder with all of the curriculum that I was thinking about for the district manager program? What did you think back then when I first told you the idea? You know what? I've been helping all these franchisees, but they're asking me, and this is what happened. The franchisees were asking me for they say, hey, Aisha, we grown. We hired the district manager. What is their job? What do they do? I'm like, well, they oversee the units. But I realized then that the franchisees had no idea what that job entailed, how to do it well, what should they be doing. So that's when I started working on creating that curriculum. It took me a year of really looking at it, adjusting it, adding, taking away to have something that made sense. And then I brought it to you. Remember that we met at a Dunkin' Donuts, right? And I brought you the binder, say, okay, here's the curriculum that I'm looking at. What do you think? When you saw that, what was your thought process, other than me being a little crazy? Or what were you thinking when that happened?
Well, a multitude of things. My first one is I couldn't do that. You and I've said other people. I've said it publicly. You have the ability to. Um, I say this in a positive way because I can't think of any other phrase. But you get off into the weeds, the good weeds, how to separate all that matter and put it in logical sequences. And it knocked me out how all encompassing the material was. And I want to pause and kind of go back because somebody watching this may think, I've been thinking about getting a franchise, and doesn't the franchise the franchisor, the people that own it, don't they teach all that stuff? And the cold reality, no, they don't. They will teach you the product, how to do it, what the standards are. They will teach you about what the company does for marketing and your responsibility. Every month you get these signs and you got to put them here. And there are things that they teach you, but they're very task oriented. But as far as to know what kind of manager should I be looking for? Oh, we can't talk. We don't talk about that. What about the supervisor? What kind of supervisor? When should I get a all these things? And it's because of litigation, fears of litigation, that they don't get into that. What I used to do for the most part as a national trainer with Domino's, going to all around doing all they don't now they train franchise owners about stuff, but they don't train the people. You know, if there's any training going to happen in a franchise store, for the most part, apart from product service and maybe image, all of the do's and don'ts and whatever, that's got to come from the franchise owner. So when I looked at this material, I think it was clearly answering the call for so many people that just up to that point, they've just had to figure it out on their own, trial and error, which trial and error is about, sometimes it's necessary. You're going to have to, oh, that's not working. But the less you can do trial and error and more being guided the right workable path, the better off you're going to be. And the pace that you get things accomplished will pick up. So when I looked at the material, it was phenomenal. It was all encompassing. I realized right away, nope, I don't have it within me. I don't have the focus ability to do all that. And most importantly, I think that I would have given anything if that would have been available when I was a young, wasn't that young, but Dunkin' Donut franchise owner, even to have someone the franchise over here doing their thing and we have our relationship, but this empty void of things that I'm just guessing and I'm trialing error, somebody to kind of help me, that would have been huge. That would have been huge.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Thank you, Curtis. Yes, it's funny because I said that it took me about a year to land in the curriculum, and I think within that years when I came to you and show you that, and you were able to give me some feedback, but it took it that long for me to just really land, at least on the very solid start of what the content should be to properly train a district manager, multi-unit leader, supervisor, whatever title you're giving them, but that men and women that are overseeing multiple units on behalf of the franchisee or the franchisor, what their job should be every day, what should be the processes and procedures they should follow, and what should be the routines that they should do so that they can then consistently produce positive, profitable results. And it took me that long to get to it. And even after launching it, we launched it about 3 years ago now, a little bit over 3 years. There's been some tweaks along the way. We have learned things from it and we have, thought of other things. And so we have tweaked it a little bit along the way, which is where we are now. And obviously it's a very successful program. We call it the LEAD program. And it's a multi-unit leadership certification program for this money. It's a 10-week program that we deliver. It is not just lessons, but it is a combination. And that's another thing, Curtis. When I show you the content, I did not tell you how the methodology was going to be to deliver it, right? These were not going to be just videos and lessons and good luck. I really wanted people to learn. My commitment was that people really had the ability to go through this program and not just watch a video, but truly learn. And that's when the methodology of, yes, here are consistent lessons, because I want to make sure that this information was delivered in a consistent way. But then those discussion calls with instructors like you, Curtis, right? And have that conversation and add some more, what do you call it, color and thought process behind the content. Like, how would you describe those discussion calls, Curtis? Oh, I think you're muted.
you and I had many discussions at the beginning when I came on board with you. Is that it can't be that I don't have enough time to cover every single thing. There were all 9 or 10 videos, for that particular module, but it was the high points to where I can put some feet on the ground with it, give some examples of how you would see that, whatever topic we're talking about, how you would see that in the everyday world. And we, in the modules, there are what we call action items. They're not homework. And there's a big difference between what we call action items and homework. And these action items it's kind of the similar thing. What I'm talking about, things I want to bring up, things I want to emphasize from the material is real life, as you call it, tactical, practical solutions and processes that will lead to, in this case, a supervisor being a better supervisor as defined by results. Better results, better profit. Let's don't hide it. So this material, in the call, that's kind of what and it is a discussion. It's not where y'all be quiet, I'm gonna talk for an hour and a half. I wouldn't do that. And I do have a lot to cover, but I ask on, it's almost like when I was doing it live, where I can call. I want people to give me their input on whatever the subject matter that we're talking about. So it's a somewhat of a two-way discussion at times. And I think when you do the videos and you start working on the action items and you do the call, you have the opportunity at least to thoroughly get immersed into this module we're talking about, staffing or results or planning. And those are just module headings for it. So it's like a recipe. You got to put so many ounces of this in. Well, the videos is an ingredient that goes into it. It's a big one. That's the big ingredient. And then the discussion call, well, that's another ingredient that goes in. Then you have the action items, and then we have quizzes. So you put it all together, you create something. So
yeah, you create which is what I see, now that it's come to life and how it's working out and how we have made it just a little bit better all the time, that it is a way to provide the participants different ways of learning. And one of the things that has been a really fun outcome of this process is that now in these discussion calls, there are people from different industries. You could be from food service, personal service, education, health and wellness, and all in one, Zoom classroom virtual. So you don't have to fly anywhere, right? And then start hearing other people's perspectives and opinions and thoughts on these particular topics, and that just elevates everyone, right? It's something that I did not consider when this happened, but it's like a fun outcome of the process in which we're doing it. And so that Curtis, I don't know if you knew this, but at this point we have now graduated over 370 district managers by the academy.
Wow, I knew it was a lot. Good Lord, I didn't know it was that many.
Yeah,
Wow.
over 370, and we have a class going right now that is a full class with people in the weight room for the fall class. So we're super excited. Clearly, that means that this has been a need that has been out there in the industry, and that people have sent people back over and over from their organization. So they've put somebody through it. They really appreciate the content and the learning, and they put other people in their organizations. And many of these are just reoccurring franchisees that send other people through our program. And we have now become part of a lot of these franchisees, multi-unit franchisees, career paths.
Yeah,
So
and I think that really encouraging to me is when you see a franchise owner coming through a supervisor class, because they never really had training on how to be a supervisor. And maybe they want to improve the supervisor level that they have, so they're starting with themselves, or they don't have a supervisor and they're thinking about getting one. And we've had several people like that want to know how to do it, what we say our way, in being a successful multi-unit leader. And then, when the class is over and then the next class comes along and there's two people that work for him, which that to me, that's a special thing, where that tells me they really think there's value to this.
Yeah, and that has happened so much that franchisees first go through the program because they did not know, nobody trained them. Literally, we have looked in the we have looked in throughout the United States and different companies as anyone that would do something similar to what we do. And there's other district manager type of programs, but not focused on the franchise industry in the multi-unit with the structure in which we deliver. So we're very proud of that program and the number of graduates and alumni that we have now. And you're right, how many franchisees have gone through it either before they put the people through or with their people at the same time.
Yeah.
And that has just been an amazing thing to see and see the results of it at the end, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, and then after that happened, once we launched that, then we have franchisees say, "Hey, Aisha, how about unit managers?" And I'm like, "Unit managers?" They say, "Yeah, the franchisor teaches them product, service, image, the marketing that is driven by them, but they're not teaching them about leadership, and they're not teaching them about, really cost control and business management and the employee life cycle, even less, right?" And we're going to talk about joint employer in a little bit. Is that something that you can do for unit managers? And so that's when the process on creating that unit manager came about, right? I think I mentioned it to you, and then how long did it take me before I even showed you anything? You remember how
It was wild. Yeah, it was wild.
yeah, because I had to create at least the outline of what the curriculum would look like. Because now what we're doing is we're teaching these men and women or single unit franchisees what are all the skills that they need to learn to run one unit successfully, right? Because a district manager is about how to oversee multiple units, not running, but oversee multiple units. And the command program is how to be the owner, the franchisee of a multi-unit organization. But now, I was going to the unit. What do I need to teach these men and women, whether they are manager for the franchisee or a single unit franchisee, how to run one unit successfully and profitably? And the content was enormous. It was huge. I don't know if you remember the first time I showed you,
I
right?
remember we went to Ted Montana's Grill. You said, I want to show you, I got some content, at least initial content for the manager's class. And you started going through it and we're like, oh my God, this is going to have to be a 4-year class. There's because you literally start with what would I want to teach this new uh, shift leader that's going to be an assistant or assistant that's going to be a manager or a new manager or an experienced manager. Well, we need to do that. Okay. Well, oh well, we got to do that. And the list it wasn't peripheral out there pie in the sky stuff. It was just it was amazing how much when you put it on paper.
Yeah. And again, I wanted it to be like I always say, right? Tactical, practical, no fluff. By the way, everybody listening to this, the American Franchise Academy is the no fluff zone because I knew that whatever we taught, it had to be quick. I couldn't take a year, while the experience while you are in our program is like going to college. I knew that the franchisees and the participants wouldn't have the ability to do the investment of time much too long. And so initially this unit manager class was going to be almost as long as a district manager at 10 weeks. But then I realized there's no way that we're going to be able to do that. And so actually, when I presented what I shared with you after the 2 weeks, I presented that curriculum to our franchisee clients, the ones that were in the command program. And I walked them through the whole thing. And they were like, wow, that's a lot. And one of them said, Aisha, you should split it in two, do a basics and then an advanced. And that was so I want to give credit to Joe for that. Gave me that idea, and I'm like, whoa, that clicked. I'm like, yeah, I can do this. So we can do a basics one. So from all this enormous curriculum, what are the things? What are the basic things? And the way that we divided it is, if you go into the unit management basics, that should be anyone that is running a shift on their own by themselves. So whether you're a shift leader, an assistant manager, or unit manager, you should go through the unit management basics. And then we have the advanced. And by the way, the basics one is 4 weeks of content. And then the advanced is for anybody that is a unit manager already, a single unit franchisee. So they are the one in charge of the unit. That's what the advanced class is for. So unit management basics and unit management advanced. The advanced is actually 5 weeks. And as you know, the structure is the same as the district manager. There are recorded lessons, there are discussion calls with the instructor, there are action items to implement, there are quizzes, and of course, there's a final exam and graduation. And so now that you see it all together, what are your thoughts as to, what's the value, for the people that wouldn't have these otherwise, Curtis? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if we're talking manager, it's what I try to say in the information class is ask yourself, how do managers get trained currently? Well, they don't wake up in the morning and know everything. And this is my opinion, is they might have been a team member and they worked there for 3 months, 6 months. They were doing great. And they observed a manager. They were sometimes side by side with them. They knew, they kind of took the lead from the manager. Then they get promoted. They're assistant manager. And now they're sometimes, as you said, running shifts by themselves, but they're greatly influenced by the manager. And then, but if you think about what are the tasks, and in my opinion, what they're learning is how to open the store, how to close the store, how to make the product, how to provide the service if it's non-food. They're very task oriented. This list is very task oriented. But when you get over to the manager, when we start talking about staffing and the employee life cycle, they just never thought about it. And the example I always used with a supervisor is most supervisors, me included, is you got promoted, you were great, you were a great manager. Follow Bob this week. He'll show you what to do. Well, it's kind of the same thing with the manager. If you worked under a great manager, then you might have learned, you had a higher level of chance of success. But what if you worked under a below average manager? I mean, that's where you're getting your knowledge from and your experience from. Somebody who's not demonstrating the best ways to do things. So it goes back to trial and error. It's just many times that's not the best way to learn.
Yeah, yeah. And to think about, for those of you that are, that are not familiar maybe with our programs, think of, what's in these programs that we teach, because we focus again on the managerial, the leadership and management skills of a unit manager, right? So, how do you recruit? How do you interview? How do you hire? How do you onboard? How do you motivate? How do you train? How do you discipline? How do you terminate in a way that is respectful? Like, and that's the entire employee life cycle. So that is the first four phases are in the unit management basics, because if you need to know how to hire, and then the other four are in the advanced. How to build a schedule that is really truly efficient. How do you control the labor costs? There are 8 profit control points in labor that if you're not paying attention at each of those points along the way, that you're going to have waste. What are the 12 profit controls of the cost of goods? If you are either food service or retail based business and have products, there are 12 points along the way of the life of this product that you could have potential waste. If you're not paying attention to each of those and nobody's teach you what those 12 points are, how are you going to be able to be great at controlling the cost of goods? And a lot of times, leaders say, hey, your food cost is too high, or your cost of goods, your COGS is too high, but they don't tell them what to do about it. Like, okay, it's too high, so can you give me some guidance as to what exactly do I need to do? And that is a lot of lack of that. So that's what this program is. And we have, again, the unit management basics and the advanced. And Curtis, you may not know this, but we have now officially reached 200 managers trained in that program. Yeah, so we only launched that almost 2 years ago, actually a year and a half, and we have reached 200 unit managers trained.
Oh,
And yeah, and again, that has now become part of the career path for many franchisees, that they themselves are not good trainers, because, I mean, franchises have to have the business acumen, but how many do you think are actually good at even training people?
well, yeah. It's before you even get to how good they are, their qualifications is the time it takes to do it. When you're a franchisee, we just said earlier, they're in charge of everything. Oh, what? You want me to? I have to do So one is just they just don't have the time, and the other is, and I've learned this way back, and I see it all the time. Because somebody knows how to do something, does not mean they're the best choice to be the one to teach others. Right? This transference of either knowledge or dexterous skills to another person, that's a skill unto itself. So you're exactly right. For a franchise owner, many of them either aren't qualified, or if they were honest, they don't do a good job at it. Or I think they all would agree, I just don't have the time to do that because it never ends.
Right.
Training store staff never ends. I always tell people that ask when is this going to end? Never.
Never.
Just never.
And sometimes they don't even know what to train. So let's just start there, right? So they're really busy, don't have the time, and then they don't know what to train because nobody taught them, and then they not even know how to train because that requires a very specific skill on how to transfer knowledge
Or
and to
they're training. What they do train is all the task stuff: how to make the product, how to provide the service, how to open the store. But the things you mentioned earlier,
the
like
thought process, right?
nobody sits people down and says, let's talk about how to interview. I've never heard a franchisor, unless after we've taught something, they've introduced some things. But there are so many things, either they assume they know it. Well, he worked at this other burger place and he's over here now. Surely he knows how to do that. I don't know. Does he or does she? So,
Yeah. Yeah. And through all of this, right, all of these franchisees that we have helped, and the over 370 district managers we train, and over 200 managers that we have trained, we have now served over 100 brands around the country. And now 150, I think, is where we are at this point. So imagine, but there are 3,000 in the United States. So there's so many more out there that don't even know we exist. And today, celebrating our ninth anniversary, we are so happy to be able to share with everybody. So if you are a follower, if you are a client, if you are someone that is trying to figure out how do we give these employees, these amazing people, the tools, the knowledge, the resources to be able to succeed at their job, explore the academy. And if you know of any other franchisors or franchisees that are looking for resources to help their franchisees and their leaders, let them know about the American Franchise Academy, because we're here so that we can be a resource for in the industry. We are the elite education organization in the franchise industry, and we focus on franchise leadership education. And we have done now, again, celebrating 9 years today, Curtis. We are super excited about that. And by the way, I don't know if you know this. I think you have, because you've seen the students. People around the world have found this. Like you have students from like what kind of places? Do you remember?
wasn't one from not Djibouti, but in the Middle East, there was a
Oh
guy.
yeah, we have had Kuwait, we have
Yeah,
had
yeah.
India for sure. Definitely, we have Latin America clients, Canadians, of course. That's a big audience for us. So definitely we have people. We have served. I think we did the research and we saw 15 countries that of students that have reached us and joined us in our programs. They find us because they're just Googling. People are just looking for information. They are Googling, or should I say AI researching nowadays, right? Trying to find knowledge and resources and training materials. So that's how, little by little we're being found. And as we serve customers and they realize the value, they just keep coming back to us for sure. And one of the things that is important to clarify for everybody out there is that we specialize, of course, in the franchise industry, but I would want to go even further in the specialization. The content that we teach, while it is applicable to just about any business, a lot of it is most valuable for brick and mortar franchise businesses. Okay. So if you are a home service company, that your business to go to the people's homes, not all of the content will be applicable, a large vast majority of it, but if you have a brick and mortar business, this is going to be especially good for you, which is, I think, is important that that people know. So, with that, we also do things like this. We have podcast episodes. We actually have reached over, let me see what that I wrote it. We have over 500 videos on YouTube. Did you know that, Curtis?
Not that I didn't know it was that many. No.
Yeah, over 500 videos in YouTube. So if you're in the franchise industry, you definitely should go to our YouTube channel, American Franchise Academy. Oh, which is where you're watching this, by the way. This is live on YouTube. We have over 500 videos. So check it out. It is really a lot of best practices and knowledge being shared for free for the industry. And we even started a podcast a little bit over a year ago, and we have over 150 episodes in the audio podcast too. And you can find it on iTunes and Spotify, so that if you prefer to listen rather than watch, you can find that. And the name of the podcast is Franchise Success Formulas, is how you can find it. But anyway, so enough about the academy. Curtis, let's talk about the industry in general, right? So we are celebrating our 9th anniversary. Let's round it up to 10. How do you think things in the industry have changed in the last year, in the last 10 years? Can you have a couple of ideas?
Let me tell you, when you
Go ahead,
mentioned
share.
that, I started thinking about that um, it the more, I'd write something, oh my gosh, wait a minute, what about this? And so I'm not gonna take my normal hour and a half to cover this. I'll kind of briefly go over it. And one is competition. I mean, the growth, not just in the existing people that continued to grow, like the McDonald's and the Burger Kings and the non-food, major chains that grow, but just new chains that are popping up. I mean, you look at chicken, go back 10 years ago, and then you come now, you got everybody and their brother opening a franchise that's selling some variation of chicken. So just competition and all that that brings for. And what I mean by that is what it brings. If I'm the existing person, I got to pick up the pace, and I got to keep pace. When they're introducing new products and technology and whatever, I don't want to be left, on the sidelines. Cost.
Actually, let me pause you there on the competition and the variation of all these brands. I mean, there are brands out there that I never even considered could be a franchise. Like, for example, one of the recent things that I learned in the last couple of years, there is this business model that is an IV bar. Do you know what an IV bar is, Curtis?
Yeah, we had students. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember.
we have students from the IV bar companies, right?
Vitamins and up. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so here you go into a business and they're actually putting in something, an IV on your veins, and they're putting nutrition in. I mean, it's like, I never would have thought.
Here's a little business. I say little, I don't know. I didn't investigate it, but it was in Tequila. Well, it's here too. And I'm down in Macon, south of Atlanta, a couple hours. And they come by once a month, whatever. I don't know the framework of their business, but it is franchise. They have a truck and a little thing. They come and wash out your trash cans.
The trash
Yeah,
cans, the trash
trash
cans.
cans. They wash out your trash cans. And I had my next door neighbor back in Atlanta used it. And she said, I love it. I got so sick and tired of it. And I'm like, okay,
I
wow.
need that business. My trash can stink.
Yes, I know. I know. And I thought that, and there is, lawn care, there's a gazillion people doing lawn care. Well, there's lawn care and not just one, franchisors out there franchising the business of just, that there's the big pest control guys that are franchised, but there's a lot of newer in the last 10 years, smaller. I mean, people see niches, and the smart people, if there's a niche, I can wiggle my way in there, between what you offer and the price and the entry cost to do that particular business. But you can't hardly name a business nowadays that there's not a franchise for.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's really amazing to me. That's been a big change, and I'm sure it goes beyond 10 years, but in the last 10 years, the amount of diversity of the potential business models and industries and products and services that are being franchised is, to me, amazing. And I remember franchise is a promise of consistency. So the difference between these, chains and a regular mom and pop is the fact that, you now could be in Florida or Georgia and South Carolina, and you should know that if you're calling on this particular brand, company, chain, that the service is going to be X. So for example, the washing of the trash cans, right? They might have the process to do it well, and they have the smells and whatever, right? So that's the thing about, what kind of business can you franchise? Oh my gosh, you name it. The very important part of it, though, is that they had to have a model that they can consistently duplicate over and over again. And
Right.
if you, with that definition, I mean, pretty much any business can be franchisable almost, right? As long as they're
And
successful.
there's so many discussions I could go into here because there are some people that are not destined to go to the franchise route. If you're the person that you don't want to be told, look, I got when you say you want to be the franchise owner, but I got a better way of doing this. I think I'm going to start selling cheesecake over here at the beauty salon. Or no, 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 no. And there's an agreement. And I should just said it. We're duplicate. Here's successful. The grandma and grandpa started this business, and their kids took it over and started franchising. And what they're trying to do is duplicate. It should look very similar. The products should be the same. The marketing is incredibly similar. All of these things. I use the example. So my point being, but you have to understand, when you sign, you're agreeing for the product, service, image, we're going to do it that way. And the value of that is, and I use the example, a couple is traveling, they got two kids in the back, they're on a trip and they're hungry and they top a hill and there's a big billboard and it says, Billy Bob's Hamburgers, next stop. And the next billboard said, McDonald's, next stop. And I said, well, now Billy Bob's Hamburgers may be the greatest hamburger you ever had in your life. I don't know, never been there, but it may be terrible. It may be clean, may not be. It just may be your kind of spot, and it may not be. So there's so many unknowns. And the McDonald's, and I ask the classes usually, what is it what does that sign tell you about this upcoming visit you may pull off the road to? You know the menu? You know what it looks like? You know the process of doing it? You know generally the price? I mean, it's more of a known quantity. Which of the two, on average, in the nation has higher sales and profitability? The Billy Bob's Hamburgers of the United States or McDonald's? Well, it's McDonald's. It's just a statistical fact. So,
Yeah,
but
and just because people know what to expect. So good, bad, or ugly, at least I can trust that what I'm going to pay for and expect is what I'm going to receive.
yeah, and for somebody who's saying, "Oh God, I don't like McDonald's," I just use them as example. You could use any major name franchise. You can see the sign. It doesn't say the words. You just see the sign. You know what the business is before you ever get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, the people that decide to be franchisees of the brand of a big brand, any franchise. If you go the franchise route, you just can't do everything you want to do. You might be right. You had an idea for a product that they poo-pooed. We don't, and you think, well, they're wrong. They may be, but that's the system that you have to work under. If you cannot do that, and I've told people back as a consultant before, if you're really going to struggle with that, you probably should go with the Billy Bob, the entrepreneur, and create your own menu and you decide everything, because there's a decision to be made. Second point is when you as a person decide to become a single franchisee, this is not a negative, it's just a reality. You have a job. You signed and you're paying for upfront and weekly, you're paying for a job.
A job.
Now, the good news, it will be good news if you love that job and you love what it takes to do it and the hours and all that go, you love it, then you've hit the jackpot.
Awesome. Yeah. And
But
the vast majority of franchisees are single unit franchisees.
right,
The
because
vast majority, they have a job. Mhm.
yeah, because you look at what it takes to go to 2 and 3, you think, well, if I can do one, I can do 2. Well, that is true because you can. but there's more to two than there is to one. And could you, if you do two, could you do five? Well, yeah, you could do five, but there's a lot more to five than there is one. And that's where people again divide up. I don't want to do that. I'm not willing to do that. I'm going to stay with the one. And other people, no, I want to go. And there are people I know, you know, too, that have become incredibly successful and wealthy. I mean, they put their time in the trenches, work like dogs, and end up with 150 stores. And so anyway, it's the difference between franchising and not franchising. It's not all one is good and one is bad. They're both different, and you have to go in understanding that.
So,
So
okay, so we talked about how the first, oh, yeah, you're gonna finish? Go
well,
ahead.
I was going to say my list. We hadn't even got past the
Right,
competition.
right. So far we talked about the competition, right? So the number or the should I say the diversity of brands and business models that are now franchising in the last 10 years has exploded to a point that it's amazing. And you go to conferences and you see it everywhere, like, wow, that's a franchise. I never thought about that being a franchise. Oh, that's a franchise. And
Well,
it is so creative.
I went with you to Vegas, and there was a franchise convention thing, and it was the gigantic room, and you had a booth for AFA explaining what AFA is and what it does. And I kind of walk around a little bit and like, I never heard of there were a bunch of them. I've never heard of them, you know, and I look at it, well, it looks pretty good. It's pretty polished, whatever. But yeah, it's not just that. It is in some of these other topics cross over. It's the technology that other competition has either brought brand new or they've evolved into, and you haven't. Your group, your franchise, man, God, they do. I look at Domino's. I mean, I'm sure how many pizza single entrepreneurs that owned pizza places back in the, I mean, back when, like when I was in high school, nobody delivered pizza. I remember the first one I ever saw, first delivery. And I'm sure some people said, delivery? Well, that's crazy. Well, how do you think about that now? You know? And
That's definitely one of those huge changes, but yeah. So let's go to the second one. I think you mentioned it was cost. That was your second thought of
I
what
got,
has changed in the last 10 years,
and
right?
I'm saying, and people immediately you would think of cost of goods, sale, and labor before we even get to that, because that really has changed the
Has
dynamic
changed a lot, right?
profitability like crazy in pricing. It touches so many other components. But I mean, the cost of signs. I'd like to know what a neon sign 10 years ago cost and what that same or very similar sign costs today. It probably knock you down. If it, the building cost to build it, to remodel them, the equipment to, all right, we got the building. I've signed a franchise agreement. In Duncan, there was a package. Domino's, the same thing. There is a standard package. You must get these. You know, going in, I got to get these things. And here's the cost. And they give you, you know, they can't just force you generally. There's some options of companies that sell things that we approve of. Um, but ovens or just any kind of equipment, the price is unbelievable. Repairs, just repair and maintenance on equipment from 10 years ago to now is astronomical. And then you get into, I started thinking cost of goods, whether you, if you're non-food, you buy something, you buy things that you have to use to present the product or service to a person. I don't know, you know, maybe I'm not an expert, but I guarantee the prices are just like, and I'm sure some people that have been in the business a long time say, boy, I remember when this thing used to cost, you know, $4 and now it's, you know, $89. It's crazy. And food. And it's not just the cost of, if we talk food, it's not, and the non food, it's not just the item, which it has gone up exponentially. It's the cost of distribution to get it somewhere because of the cost of gas and diesel and shipping and labor. We all understand what the minimum wage, what it has, one, done to the business, and number two, to stay competitive, going back to competition. If you, I'm not paying that high rate. Well, good luck. You're going to be in the store by yourself. right?
I remember when I started as a pizza delivery driver, I made 3.25 an hour. That was the beginning rate, right? Now the beginning rate is two, three, four, five, no, maybe not five times. Well, you know what? For assistant managers, it's almost five times that now.
Well, I'm not going to say I'm older than you, but I remember my dad in the 10th grade got me a job in the summer and I hated it because all my friends were at the pool in this subdivision pool and I was bussing tables. The only good thing is you got one meal free and I ate a hamburger steak every day. But it was 2.25 an hour. And that was the minimum wage. But today to nowadays, when you go back in minimum wage was 7.25, I remember at Domino's, I mean, other than drivers and they got split wages, I don't want to get into all that, but there were to get people that you wanted to hire, nobody was making minimum wage. Everybody was making above minimum wage if you wanted to be competitive. Well, that has not changed except the dollar figures have gone up. Yes, you may be in a state where it's $15, but you're just not hiring the type of quality of person that you think, and you may have to go to 17. You have to pay whatever it is to do it, which leads you to this value between cost of the product and where do I sell it? What's the selling price? Because this one has changed, it's forced that one to change. I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, I was gonna say, sorry, Curtis, to interrupt you, but I was gonna say that sales have also changed and gone up. Like the average unit sales, right? It was, we call it average weekly unit sales, right? It was, what was to what it is now. I mean, it has gone up. I don't think the same rate that the costs have gone up, but but the sales have gone up for sure because you had to cover the expenses, right? So what you charge goes up, but also the number of units that you're selling also has gone up. And I don't know if people are buying less groceries when it comes to food service and buying more food outside because the volume has gone up as well as the cost per unit. So both things have gone up. The cost
Yeah,
per unit and the volume, the transaction count, let's call it.
yeah.
And are people using more services? Are people going more to the hair salons and the facials and the pedicures and the
I
massages? And are
I
they
think it's
going, right? Are we now becoming more servicer and rather than wash our cars, are we going to car washes? Because I mean, I see these average sales for these brands and it has gone up, right? Would you not
Oh, it's
agree with that?
unbelievable. What you and I used to consider a high volume store, and I'm sure people in McDonald's and Burger King and all the others think back 15 years ago, what was a high volume? What was the range?
Right.
Now everybody's above that number. I
Way
mean,
above.
yeah,
Sometimes double.
yeah. I mean,
And that becomes average. Yeah.
I hear volumes. Everything's relative. I get it. And all of that changes the prices going up. That changes this thing called the menu price slash value relationship that a customer has to think, I got to pay that much to get X, you look at, there's no such thing as a dollar menu anymore. It's just not.
Mm-mm.
I used to go to McDonald's. I'd get a fry and a half and half tea because I don't need all the sugar. And we still call it. Did you get a dollar burger while you were out? Well, yeah, but it's not a dollar burger anymore. And it used to be you could do it for 3.79, and that was 5 years ago. And now I just did it. It was 7.19 for a small drink and a small fry, and what used to be the dollar burger. So and I'm sure there's a lot of gnashing of teeth at the upper level trying to, because they know if we want to raise this price, and we can argue it based on our cost, but if we do, the demand's going to drop. It's called elasticity of demand. Unless you're selling life-saving heart drugs, you can raise the price, people still have to have them, but they don't have to have the $10 burger. It used to be six, now it's $10, and yeah, I'll make a sandwich at home. So yeah, there's so much with competition and just those two things.
Yeah, so far we talked about the diversity of brands and that are franchising nowadays. Second is how the cost has changed. What else has changed in your opinion in the last 10 years?
I just put it down in the only phrase I could think of, and again, I said a lot of these cross. One could you could argue put that under this other heading. but as social media intrusion, I use the word intrusion.
Mm.
Um, and that ties into one of my last ones. It used to be word of mouth about a business. Now it's reviews.
Reviews,
You
yes.
get some bad reviews, it can knock a dent in your sales and profitability. I'm not going to
Significant.
go into it, but there are examples out there where that happens. And we always say, do reviews matter? To me, they do. I have two rules. I don't care about
Absolutely.
one 5 years ago, a review done 5 years ago. And I don't care where there's only been two reviews, period, on the whole business. But if there's been 100 in the last 6 months and I go through their reading and there's a common theme of poor quality or whatever it is, it affects me. And
Do
I
you
think,
do you actually go deep into that? Because you know what, my behavior is different. So that you know, for all of you out there, I'm a consumer. I go out and I do the Google search, and guess what I do a lot of the times? Da 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 near me, da 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 near me, right? And so the
yep,
map pulls up with all the things of that near me, and the next thing I look at is the reviews. I don't go deep into what the reviews say, Curtis. You may, but guess what? Me as a consumer, I just look at the reviews, and if you have whatever is the highest, I click on that, and if it's not too far, that's where I go.
no,
That's
and you're doing it because you said which is the highest. It'd be, I might look, I think about when we're traveling with our camper and we're looking at an RV place to stay. I need it to be quiet and safe and
mm,
low. That's all I need.
mm,
So when I read reviews, you can equate this to food or other retail.
mhm.
If I don't care about the laundry, I don't care about the pool. So there's some things that may drop the star level down.
Oh, I see. I see what you mean.
I don't care, but so I'm just trying to get an educated vet. But again, back up 15 years ago, what you didn't have that. Hey, have you ever been over to this place over? Yeah, it was terrible. Oh, okay, good. So the social media from your employees, their use of social media, and that can open up a can of worms in the negative. Um,
Mm.
in
Yeah.
the hiring and staffing, social media, and it's all under. I put technology leaps, the leaps that technology has made in. Marcia and I have a phrase. You know what a Luddite is? Luddite. Luddite.
No, what is a Luddite?
Because Marcia is definitely, and she'll admit it, and I am in some things, not in others. A Luddite is any person, this is real, I'm not making this up. A
Mm.
Luddite is any person who struggles or hates technology.
Oh,
Password, you go in your password and it doesn't work. What do you mean it doesn't work? It work. So when I think of businesses, retail businesses of any kind, all of the technology that came in. I remember when Domino's, when the credit cards got the little stamp thing on where you could tap it and it was another level of security. Oh my gosh, we had to go
yes,
through
yes.
it. Took 6 months and and franchise owners had to buy new equipment and they weren't happy. But it's just the way technology was going, and you got to go with it. Sometimes kicking and screaming, but
It's
um,
interesting. You know how in the command program we have masterminds with all the franchisees, and a lot of the things that come up, I would say in at least 2 out of 3 calls minimum, is technology. Hey, do you know about a platform that does this? Oh, look, I found this new platform that does that. And what would be the best platform for this? And as a matter of fact, right now, this week, I am delivering a franchisor fundamentals masterclass. I'm doing 1 hour a day, every day this week. And one of the questions was, "Hey, Aisha, do you know of a platform that does what you just explained?" I'm like, "Well, it's amazing how, yeah, technology and the thing about technology. One thing that I love about technology is the fact that it really makes us faster, better, more efficient at some of the things that we do." But then we had to learn the darn technology. We had to invest on that. And now, and going back to the cost, Curtis, every technology is this much a month per store per unit per
yep,
month, right? This
yep,
much per store per unit, per unit per
yep.
month, and this much per unit per. I mean, it's like we franchisees are being charged, per month per unit, to death, right? And going back to the cost, because technology is a cost that we. I mean, do you remember having a technology cost when we were doing pizza orders by hand? I don't know. There was no technology, right? I think the
Yeah.
most was the music cost. Remember how we had to pay for the music? Actually, not at Domino's. We had to pay for music in other brands like Popeyes, right? Because you had to pay for that music. But outside of that, there was no technology cost. And while it does make us much more efficient and better at what we do every day, we have to be very careful. Franchisees have to be very careful as to what they choose, and then make sure that they use it and maximize it. Otherwise, it's like throwing money out there. So
And I've learned for my first division is, do I really need that? Can that help me? And if it can, then that leads to other issues. But or when all is said and done, I don't think I'd ever use it. Okay, so I've made my first division, but now I'm at, oh my God, I got to learn it. Even as an individual, like passwords. How many people, I'll bet you, if they would admit it, how many people have a password on a folded up sheet of paper? It's full of passwords and it's in their wallet or their purse, which is about the most unsecure thing you could do. I was so smart. My wisdom is just renowned. Mine forever was in the note section. How ridiculous. I mean, Curtis wasn't safe at all. And it was 2 or 3 pages of password. And my daughter, who is a Luddite, came to visit, and as an example, and there's multitudes out there. There's a built-in one in your phone. She showed me how to use a program called Bitwarden to put all my passwords in. You put everything in there. It's super duper secure, triple, top secret, whatever. And this thing was, and I struggled with it because, oh God, now which button do you hit? But once I've learned it, I'm so glad I have it. And the lesson I learned for me, and I try to tell people, especially older people, and I can say that because I'm an older person, is if the technology will help you, if it'll help you be better, more efficient, faster, more profitable, whatever, you got to learn it. And I take the standpoint, and I'm hoping a franchise owner would look at, if my 18-year-old customer service rep out front, if they can do that, then I can do it. Might take me a little bit longer, but you just can't go. Now, these are things that you admit you need to do. They will help you. Then you got to get over it. You got to spend the time. But I've had to. I know. Curtis, when does it stop? Never.
Never.
But technology, it probably between that and cost, well, and competition, it's just, that's why when you asked me this question and I started thinking about it, it's almost like 10 to 15 years ago, the business, pick a business there, and the business now, it's like two different businesses.
Yeah. And if you don't really think about it, we would not exist if it was not for technology, the academy. We couldn't be doing what we're doing right now. Look at this. You are in Macon, Georgia. I am north of Atlanta, Georgia. We are on this, software that is allowing us to do a TV show live on YouTube where many people can watch and hear, our conversation and hopefully get a nugget or two out of it, if not at least some entertainment on how things are happening. And all our classes, our programs are all virtually, because one of the things that I knew that we needed to overcome is we could not have the people get out of their stores or their state, get in a plane and go somewhere to learn this. And no matter how valuable the information, right? Like you didn't want to travel, right?
I wouldn't want to travel. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're right. That was one of the requirements for you to join the academy.
yeah, when you asked me, I said, I flew for 3 years every week. I'm not doing this shit. No, Zoom. You taught me everything I know about Zoom. I don't know anything about it. And
Right.
we've had students in Hawaii. This class is at 10:30 Eastern Standard, multi-units Tuesday, managers Wednesday. And we've had students in Hawaii. It's 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I tell the story, we had a lady, and I didn't even know it, about 8 weeks. She's pregnant and she has the baby. And the next week she's on the call from Hawaii and received all the information and the knowledge. Yeah, technology, it does have its struggles. Yes, you have to learn something. You got to have that mindset. Will it help me or will it not? That's the first question. But once you say, yes, that will help me, you got to suck it up, buttercup, as they say. and learn it. Let tech if technology will help you, let it help you. If it will do things quicker, more efficiently, let it do it. Let it help you.
Yeah.
Uh,
And once you get over that learning curve, everything else is so much easier after that. Yeah.
yeah. And then most of the things you think, okay, we're going to take that away from you. No, you're not. No, you're not. I love this technology. I couldn't live without it. I don't want to go back to paper.
Oh yeah, like I have, my phone and I use my calendar on my phone religiously. As a matter of fact, here in my office, I have two screens. One of them is permanently on my calendar. Now I might move it from it, but then it goes back to my calendar so I can refer to it constantly so that I can be as efficient as possible. But that used to be like I have a whole, line of in one of my shelves of all of my old annual calendar books. I used to do it in paper before. Now
Oh,
that's way past.
yeah, the paper. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to move along? Because I
Yeah,
got.
let's go to let's do one more thing, Curtis, that has changed the most in the last 10 years that we can discuss and then we'll close today's conversation in
You
celebration
mentioned
of the anniversary.
you
Huh?
mentioned it's on here, but you mentioned it, so I'm gonna hold aside the joint and several liability. I don't know if you were going to mention it, so we'll move that aside.
Let's talk about that. Unless you have something that you think would be bigger than
Well,
that.
I have two quick ones, and we're not going to go into depth of any of them. Is the hiring struggles, hiring people struggles. It's always been an issue, and
Oh,
I
always.
joke there used to be signs they were called reader boards, and usually they're on the pole. Sometimes some are mobile,
Right.
and it's where you put up buy one get one free today. They were created for advertising
For marketing. Mm-hmm.
for marketing. And you go down the street, they're everywhere. Well, there's a name for them now, and it's not reader board. They're called what, Aisha?
For hire board? I
Now
don't know.
now
Now
hiring
hiring,
signs.
yes.
That every one of them is
Now,
now hiring
yeah.
signs.
Yeah, isn't it? That's true.
Yeah, hiring has always been a struggle. There's never, I always tell a manager, oh yeah, I got a great staff. Man, they are.
No, it's always been that has not changed that much, but yeah.
I say enjoy it. What do you mean enjoy it? Well, it's not going to last.
Not gonna
So
last.
while you're fully staffed and everybody's trained, enjoy that time. That thing, and because of things we've mentioned, all the things that we've competition and pricing and labor costs and everything, it's made that a tougher nut to crack, so to speak, which why we say my saying is you cannot hire yourself out of a hiring crisis. You can retain your way out, but you can't just simply hire yourself.
Mm.
And the other one is, I thought, is a big change. And I think it was always there for the examples I'm going to give you, but the intensity of it and the visibility of it is government. And I'm not anti-government. That's not my point, but I'm just saying if you want to join a franchise and you don't want the government involved at all, well, nowhere in America, from taxes and the complexity of taxes, building codes, the health department requirements, some states and counties worse than others comparatively. They've gotten fire departments and their requirements. It's all of these government entities, and all of those are good. You can't say, well, with the building's on fire, you're sure going to want to have a fire department handy, and health department. All of those things are good. I'm just saying your interaction with them is, I think, at a higher and more visible level than it was 10, 15 years ago. So
Yeah, no,
now,
you're definitely right about that. For sure, that has changed.
do you know who? I'll just give you. This is a quiz. We'll move into this. Might be the last. Do you know who Stella Lebec was? Liebeck.
No, I don't. Mm-mm.
I'll tell you a little bit about her. Raise your hand when you think you know who she was. 1992, 79 years old. Was in her grandson's car, and they stopped at a place and got coffee handed through the carryout window
Oh, the lawsuit in McDonald's.
and gave it to the grandson. He handed it to her. There were no cup holders. She burned herself so bad. When I first heard this, and I think everybody I knew, like, are you kidding me? She's going to sue. She had to have skin grafts. It burned her so bad. And I was reminded at Dunkin' Donuts, the one number I remember, coffee, and they would measure it in an inspection. It had to be 196 degrees. 196 degrees poured on you will you will have to have medical
That is
attention.
extremely, I mean, and I like hot coffee, don't get me wrong. If you're gonna
You
have me
couldn't you
a
couldn't drink it.
coffee
You
and it's
now they may have changed it. I don't know, but as I recall, don't drag me in. As I recall, I was like, "Good gosh, isn't it? You can't even drink it. It's so hot." So they offered her $800. It cost her 20,000 for the skin grafts and stuff. So she sued, and then you can imagine the franchise store, and there, is over here, and corporates over here. But there are other things. I'll let you go into joint liability of what that means.
yeah, no, definitely. One of the biggest things that I think has changed and that has affected the franchise industry to such a tremendous level. And by the way, why the American Franchise Academy exists. If this particular issue of the joint employer liability rules did not exist, the American Franchise Academy would not exist, and Aisha would be out there running another brand. And this joint employer liability is these rules that came up, and I don't even know when they started to come up because really when I was out there, we talked. It was heard a little bit, but it's not. It has not. It had not progressed as it has in the last 10 years, to the way that it has. And before they were being in need for the academy because the franchisors, because of money and resources, did not or could not provide some of this knowledge and training. But now the franchisors, sorry, cannot provide this knowledge and training because of this joint employer liability. And what this law, these rules, it does not prevent franchisors from training franchisees and franchisees team members. But what it does say is that if you, Mr. Franchisor, get into the franchisee's business and you are training their team members specifically and especially in anything that has to do with employee management, aka employee life cycle, recruiting, interviewing, hiring, onboarding, training, disciplining, motivating, any of that particular process, you now become a joint employer with that franchisee with their team members. This means that anything that these employees do that could cause a lawsuit or some sort of liability of any kind with a company or a person or a customer or even within their own organization, this person can then not only sue the franchisee but also sue the franchisor because they're going to be considered just as liable for what that employee did, and therefore they're going to have to be responsible for it. And that rule, what is has caused now, they said, okay, the franchisor said, look, I don't want to be liable for what your employees do, so therefore let me know. Okay, Mr. Law, tell me, what do I need to not provide to never be considered a joint employer? And a lot of it is training and support of the franchisees, employees, and even the franchisee in certain areas. And so then the franchisors say, we are just not going to do that anymore. When before, that a lot of legacy franchisors used to provide a lot of training
I
and
did.
guidance, right? That was part of your job, Curtis, right? And now, were you already in your way out when that change was happening, or did that change
At,
happen after you left?
at the very end, and there was a case, and it was, I'm not going to say who it was a major franchisor, and it was a labor lawsuit about not paying overtime and wages. And come to find out, the franchisor was teaching classes to the franchisee about labor control and, some tips and tricks, so to speak. That was the claim. And I remember I was probably my last month. And I remember the meeting where a lawyer said, these are the things you from this day forward cannot discuss. And it related to me being involved in supervisors training and especially manager and crew. Like I could go into a store and teach. Now, product, service, and image were kind of the safe ones, right? But you started talking, in the case of Domino's, you start talking about delivery drivers and what they do on the road and all that stuff. You just get drawn into and said we just stopped. And that the types of a lot of the types of classes that I used to teach, and I'm sure it happened in Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, and non-food alike for franchisors, they just can't do it. And the edict was, we'll teach the franchise owner, we'll teach them up one side and down the other, and it's their responsibility to teach their people, right?
Which then brings us back to how good are these franchisees at training, right? And even if they went through a class for them to be trained, how much do they actually absorb? And how good are they to transfer that information, especially when there are not enough tools provided to be able to do so? And that's where, we go downhill from there. And that makes me think of, like, I was not in the middle of the trenches when this particular stuff happened. Like, if I had been in that meeting with you, Curtis, I think that knowing that my job is mostly training, and that how much you love training franchisees and the team members, and how committed you are to, that just puts me back. It reminds me at the day that it was announced in the brand, the cancellation of the 30-minute guarantee. And I know you were not around at that point. It was in 1993. I was actually sitting in the office inside a pizza store in Honduras, Central America, because at the time I was an international. And even though those things did not apply outside the United States, I remember getting a call from my boss, who was based out of Florida, in the international department, to let me know, because it was a chain of communication across the brand, that effective that day, Domino's Pizza was eliminating the 30-minute guarantee of 30 minutes or $3 off. By the way, it was never free. It was 30 minutes or $3 off. It was officially canceled throughout the entire brand. And I remember the feeling of so much sadness, because I knew how that was going to affect the operations and the motivation of the team members inside of the four walls. And I remember I almost cried when that happened. So
Well,
I
I'll
can only
tell you,
imagine how it
I
felt for
do
you.
remember the court case that caused that, and it was, and these facts came out in court when a defense attorney is questioning people, and there was a driver who was rushing to get a delivery, and he crashed head on into an elderly couple. I won't go into the details of that. So they sued the franchise owner and they sued the franchisor. That was the big one.
Mm-hmm.
And in court, it said, they to make it quick, what they brought out was there was this time frame that they had to get the pizza there. There was pressure. You won an award, and not a good one, if you were the slowest driver. They had the technology to say the time, and at the end of the week, whoever, I think it was like a little, I don't know, it was something that went to the slowest driver. And in juries,
In that store, because that was not a brand thing.
yes, yes, that was that store, but they got sued. And so you imagine you're the jury, and the franchisor is saying, "Hey, we didn't have anything to do with that." And they go, "Yeah, you did. Your people. Did the corporate rep ever come? Oh yeah, were they aware of that? Yeah, they knew that was." So that's when Dominic said, "Whoop, stop, can't
That's
do that."
it. I wonder if that's the beginning of the joint employer. I wonder how much of
I
that
think
was.
that one started with
Oh, well, that was
McDonald's.
93 though. So that was a long time ago. A
Yeah,
long
there are three or four major ones. The McDonald's overtime cheating scandal, because it was, as I read it, as I understand it, I'm not a lawyer, that this wasn't by accident, this cheating people out of overtime. It was a plan to do that, and they got sued with them. So, and that's where every company, and I can't blame them. It's like, whoa, I can't have anything to do with that.
Yeah,
So.
that's it. And I think that this particular one, this joint employer has really changed a lot as to how the franchisors operate, how the franchisors support or, stop the support towards the franchisees, even though I know many of them want to go beyond that. But this particular, the ones that do have the resources don't do it because of this particular, liability. And of course, there's some that still don't have the resources, but as they could, they would, but now they simply are not going to. And
Well, and you think about franchisees that own 20, I'll just draw a line. It could be, we could debate the number, 20 stores and up, 15 stores and up. They can afford to have a trainer, a
Right.
designated 24 hours a day. That's their function, training. Franchise owner works with them, gets curriculum, when we're going to have it, where. But if you own one store or two, especially one store, you can't afford,
You are it.
take you this hat off, put your trainer hat on.
Right.
And it goes back to what you said, Aisha, is they may not be the best person
To
to
train.
do the training. They rush because they don't have time, they don't have the patience, or they have the knowledge,
Hmm.
but that's not the key. Training is about, can you transfer the knowledge or dexterous skills, whatever it is, to someone else. So anyway, that all that along with this list makes me go back and think the business that was here 10 years ago, that's not the same business now. It's
It
just
is a much different business. You're right. So, and so here is, in closing, I would say, first of all, hey, thank you, Curtis, for being part of this amazing celebration for us, and for agreeing to join us with your, requirements. Like, I know you're retired, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that your experience as an instructor is a good one and a positive one. And I know that your commitment is to pay it forward and share your knowledge and your wisdom with the students. And I know how much you love and enjoy that. And so we are honored to have you in our organization, all these years helping us with that, and helping me today celebrate today. Before I go to closure, I want to invite, if you're still with us and you can think of other things that have changed in the industry, please put it in the chat. I would love to see your comments as to what other things have you noticed that had changed in the last 10 years that we could share with everybody else, and how are you overcoming it, because all these changes, I would say that the franchise industry is just as powerful, if not more, as it was back, 50, 60 years ago. So we are, and have been overcoming all of these, changes, and some of them are not necessarily bad, but we are overcoming. And the franchise world is still a huge world of opportunity for anyone that wants to make their American dream of business ownership through franchising. Still is a great, viable, amazing opportunity. And so, to help overcome these challenges, especially the joint employer and the lack of training and support from the franchisor, because they simply cannot, not only because of the time and resources and money, but because of this liability. That is where the American Franchise Academy comes in. We are here exactly to be able to provide and fill in that void for the franchisees and the team members that need this knowledge, that are hungry to learn more and be better at what they do every day in terms of leadership and management of a business. That is what the American Franchise Academy programs have been designed for. The Unit Manager Basics is a program that is specifically for anyone that is running a shift on their own. So whether you are a shift leader, assistant manager, a manager, a single unit franchisee, this is the basic things that you need to know to be successful. And then the Unit Management Advanced, that is designed for anyone that is actually the ultimate responsible leader of a unit. So this is for unit managers that are in charge of it, or single unit franchisees that of course are running the franchise. And then the next and by the way, the unit manager, we call it Manage 1.0 and Manage 2.0. And then we have our third program, which is the District Manager Multi-Unit Leadership Certification Program. We call it LEAD. And that program is designed to help the men and women that are overseeing multiple units and that have never received structured training as to how to do that in the most effective way. So that is the the multi-unit leadership lead program. And then that takes us to our signature program, the one that started it all, which is the command program that is focused to help multi-unit franchisees or franchisees that are getting ready to grow into a multi-unit enterprise. And we, in that program, provide you with all of the knowledge, all of the tools, all of the resources that you need to define, to document, and to train and roll out in your organization the processes, the systems, the procedures that you need to manage a multi-unit enterprise successfully, with confidence and profitability. So that's who we are, what we do every day. We are now in the 9th year that we're doing this. There's been hundreds and hundreds of students and participants that gone through our programs, and we continue to get better and improve everything that we do. So I would like to invite you to explore what we had to offer at AmericanFranchiseAcademy.com. And going back to you, Mr. Curtis, thank you for joining me today in this
Thank you.
celebration.
Thank you for having me. It was brings back memories, and I've enjoyed it. It's a good time. I hope everybody got something out of this.
Yes, thank you
Appreciate
very much. So, with that being said, thank you for being with us in this very special podcast version of the Franchise Success Formulas. And with having said that, we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye, everybody. See you
Bye.
soon.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you. Bye, everybody.